Here.
And Stacy. Okay.
Roy's here too.
And Roy.
How did I?
He was
It's
absent
because you-
last time.
That's because I didn't have you. I'm sorry. Roy. It's because we're. Sorry, Roy.
All right. We have in front of us minutes of the 17-2023 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Approve. Any discussion, changes, comments? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes? Anyone opposed? Minutes are approved. Here you go.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we have public comment on agenda items, so we have some members of the public here. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes. If there's anything on the agenda which you would like to make comment on, please come up to the podium, introduce yourself, and the 3 minutes are yours. All right, no public comment on agenda items. Chad, we got your summary, and thank you for sharing the summary with us. Programming Halloween in the Park is coming up on the 21st.
Yeah, Saturday, October 21st. We'll have 3 time slots. We decided to move it back just a little bit later this year to get a bit more of an evening feel to it so we can have some more lights included in the trail. We'll be doing 5:30, and 6 o'clock. We'll have 200 tickets per time slot. 100 will be online, 100 will be in person. We can make adjustments to that as necessary. We're just looking for this year, Park and Grill sponsor the event. And then we're also looking for table sponsors. So any businesses that might be interested in sponsoring a table, no charge to families or individuals that just want to be a part of the event, don't actually want to go through the trail or something like that, but still want to be involved with it. We'll move on to the fall art classes and Bot Masters workshop, unless we have any questions or comments regarding Halloween party.
Yeah, so this fall, we're going to be continuing our fall art classes that we started.
I'm sorry. I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
so this fall, we're gonna be continuing our fall art classes that we started in the summer. Just to let everyone know, we did a couple classes, about 5 classes in the summer, had an enrollment of about, I think it was 11 kids during the summer session. For the fall, we're gonna be doing 5 weeks of it. So far, we had over 13 students enrolled in the classes. The classes are scheduled to take place inside at the McKeever Lounge here in the Lavins Activity Center. Something that's also going to be new this fall is our Bot Master workshop. It's basically a STEM workshop that introduces children to robotics. They'll get to learn, they'll get to build / learn more about the world of robotics. They get like a mini kit that they can take home as well. The instructor for that class will be Sherry Betcher. She does a robotics program at some of the Grosse Pointe schools. I'm excited to have that started as well. Questions about the art classes or the Bot Master workshop?
Hearing none. Chad, we have a number of adult leagues that you have in your report.
Yeah, we plan on being busy this fall and winter with adult programming as well. So we're bringing back, I believe, 5 divisions or so, 6 maybe divisions of pickleball on Sundays, Mondays, and Fridays. We'll have men's over 30 drop-in basketball on Wednesday nights. We'll have co-ed adult volleyball on Tuesday nights. We'll have cornhole on Thursday nights. I think I've hit everything but Saturdays, and at this time we're kind of leaving Saturdays open for rentals of the gym space. Some great news with that is we're getting some work finished up on the gymnasium floor. So we got that completely resurfaced, new lines, We've done the LED lighting last year. There's going to be a lot of great things for the programs for all ages to use, and you'll see a nice fresh look in the gymnasium. So I'm excited to have that finished up, and they're actually ahead of schedule. So we're hoping that they might be done with the work this coming Friday. Once we get word of that, we'll send it out and we'll be able to push some rentals and classes. So we're looking forward to that. And we'll go on to fitness classes.
So the fitness classes that we're going to be continuing in the fall are a continuation of the class, or some of the classes that we started in the summer. So a lot of the classes that we're gonna be offering, we're offering a yin yoga class, a vinyasa power pose class. We're also offering a strength, stretch, and balance class. The registration for that is scheduled to start on Friday. And I think I lost my train of thought for a second.
I know we've got, I believe, 6 classes, right?
Yes, yes, we're also offering 2 new fitness meditation workshops. They're gonna be small one-day classes, one-day programs where residents can come in for a couple hours, experience the class. Basically, it's a teaser if we wanna continue it for the winter and future months going forward as well.
And Stedman's been doing a great job with workshops, fitness classes, and other programming for the youth. And our goal, I think everyone in here agrees, one of our main focuses to get as many people down at the park as possible. So we're going to get creative in ways with that. If we can utilize the Tompkins Center and the McKeever Lounge, the gymnasium, Lindell Lodge, you name it. The goal is to get as many people going to those parks as possible. So there's still a lot of options and things that we can look into offering. We've got big goals for next summer as well. So we're heading in the right direction. I'm excited for it.
All right. Anything else on programming, Chad?
No, I think we're good with everything in programming.
All right. Windmill Point, we've had some developments on Windmill Point since we spoke last. And you may have noticed as you reviewed your packets that the packets have a very different look than they have had for meetings before. And this is part of our effort to increase the discussion level of this meeting. There's some information that, as it went to the playscapes, took place between the May meeting and this meeting. This is the longest gap we have between meetings, is between the May and September meeting. But one of the things we're going to cover in new business is actually changing our meeting schedule going forward, because there's been an awful lot that's happened in the 4 months here since May. And one of those things, as many of you saw either online or at the city council meeting, is some Patterson Park playscape items that we discussed at our last meeting had accelerated to the point that the foundation proposed a playscape, and it is now a Windmill Point playscape, all since we met last. And so we are, one of our goals is to make sure that this commission is part of soliciting community feedback, weighing in on ideas that affect the parks here. And so we have, for this item, it fell between meetings, and we have some aspirations to make sure that we have a different level of feedback going forward, especially with Patterson, which is the bigger project. But the upside is we have an unexpected, very nice, very complete Windmill Point playground that was not on our radar at the May meeting. So Chad, you want to explain what the playground is and, or playscape is, and what the foundation is bringing in here to Windmill and what the timelines are?
Yeah, I'm incredibly excited about this project. One, I'm thankful for the foundation. Both parks are going to need some upgrades and playground structures. I'm also very thankful for the residents giving us their feedback, and us being able to relocate this project to Windmill Point Park, which is going to allow us to put in a new, fully ADA accessible, playground at Windmill. And we're going to be replacing the current items that are there that most everybody knows are fairly dated as well. So again, we're going to be adding some new features and amenities and things like that at Windmill, adding more to the facelift. So looking in there, the aesthetics are going to be more pleasing. You'll have a great view from the pool. As most of you saw in the drawings, that gray circle that you see behind the playground equipment, that would be the children's pool. So to give you a perspective on it, where you see the large purple playground equipment right now will now be that smaller equipment with the spinners and the little rock wall. That will be an area that is geared more towards 2 to 5 year olds. And down at the other end where you see kind of the orange, blue, and green larger playscape will eventually go over to more of a 5 to 12-year-old focus. And again, it's just going to be a great improvement on an already beautiful park, but replacing some things that need to be replaced. And very thankful to have the community input, the foundation work on this project. And it's hopeful that we are able to get the construction going this fall and be able to have it done before the winter hits. So,
And Chad, the foundation was good enough to donate and arrange for all of this equipment. Are there installation costs, things that the parks will be paying for, or is the foundation project inclusive of everything?
I don't believe there's going to be any expenses on the city's end. We are going to most likely remove most of the equipment, but with the machines, equipment, DPW staff that we have, most of the items there are not to the scale or size of what the Patterson playground would have been. So it should be a quick removal process. And then excavating and grading the area with hopefully a early October installation date if everything goes as planned.
So, as we talked about, not necessarily the process of how we expected to get here, but this seems like a tremendous upgrade for Windmill. And I know that the Windmill Point Playground was on your radar for future years. Do we have expected lifespan on this? Is this off the checklist now for
Yeah,
a long time?
absolutely. Yeah, the 3 to 4 year kind of plan that we had put in place to slowly replace all those pieces of equipment, we will not have to worry about now for quite some time. And also, as you can see in those pictures, some of those areas are going to be poured in place, rubber surfacing as well. So the wood engineered mulch and the board in place will be a nice area around there as well. So it's going to be great for everyone that wants it. I expect to see, again, going back on it, we talked about activity and getting people to park. This is going to be a great way for people to utilize both of the playgrounds at both parks. So
How long will it take to install it? Do you have any idea yet?
I believe it might be about 2 weeks or less, I think.
Really, that fast?
Yeah, they're pretty quick in their work.
Well, is that just, that's not start to finish, that's just
Getting
install?
getting the equipment and stuff installed. I'm not for sure on the port in place and the mulch and things like that, but I believe for equipment and stuff like that, it should only be a couple week process. So
But nobody's really gonna be able to play with it until you get the board in place, and I'm assuming. And the protect,
yeah.
I mean, it's all
Yep.
safety.
I'll double check with the contractor, but it's a possibility that before winter hits, that some people will be able to go out.
Might be usable,
And-
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
And I really think that's gonna be the great thing of the off season. You're gonna see more kids and families and moms and dads, stuff, friends getting together that you wouldn't normally see during those times of the year down there. So I'm excited about that. And you have the option of going Patterson this day, Windmill that day, back and forth, bring some friends. So it's gonna be nice.
Chad, in terms of ongoing maintenance, can the park staff handle whatever's required for the port in place, sealing or coating, or do we have to contract that out?
I believe with the way that it's set up, I'll have to double check on if we'll have to have that subcontracted out or not. And I'll get back with those numbers. I believe it's every 2 to 3 years or so that you'll want to put that coating, the sealer back on it again. But I'll get those numbers to make sure.
So I assume that the port in place is very similar to what we have in the splash pad?
Quite similar, yeah.
So do we do the maintenance on the splash pad?
Yes.
Chad, are these all the same pieces that were previously slotted to go to Patterson Park?
Yep.
And we could use them all? There's
Yeah.
nothing, like, it all fits?
Yep. Everything still fits with
Layout.
Yeah. It's just a different layout on how it was originally drawn up for Patterson. But we didn't lose any items for the original project. They were all.
That's pretty cool.
Fit them in that. It's just a little bit longer than it was at the other playground or at Patterson. Yeah, Marty.
So once the board in place goes in there and it rains real hard, water just saturates right into the ground.
I believe it would be more of a runoff.
It's more of a runoff.
Yep.
I would say that the park owes the foundation another big thank you for this. This is fantastic.
Yeah, this is it's a tremendous upgrade for Windmill, and I know you've probably already done so, Chad, but please do thank the foundation for this, a big change.
Helps us deal with all the controversy over upgrading the one in Patterson Park too.
We'll be there in a few minutes.
Yeah, so that's great.
All right. Anything else on Windmill, Chad, before we get to the facilities?
I may?
Yeah.
So, Marty, Howard, thank you. They've shared some detailed feedback I would describe almost approaching audit quality, including pictures and recommendations. So thank you for that. As it relates to Windmill Park, approximately 20 observations and or open items. Frankly, most were tactical items that have been completed or planned to be addressed immediately. Things like tree trimming, tennis screens, kiddie pool gate. I'm going to call out 5 items that will likely involve additional planning, higher sense of urgency, and special funding considerations. They don't necessarily require dialogue, but I suspect some of these will be part of the next meeting in November. So, number 1, and Chad, I'd ask you to help tag team this, and we'll go through them quickly. Pool starting blocks are a concern. The project cost a bit more than what I was expecting. Just eyeballing it, Chad, if you could, please.
Yeah, we're like some of the other items we have. Our starting blocks have seen better days. They've aged. We've done some research on tops and things like that. But just with the years, the age of them, they're especially items. So the way that the concrete is at an angle in the gutter system, the starting blocks themselves are at certain angles in order to have safe entry into the pool. So you have to factor all that in. It's not as easy as just pulling out the old ones, buying some used ones, and putting some that are 5 years newer than the old ones in. It's going to take a little more effort and funding to make that happen. You might be looking anywhere $45,000 to maybe $60,000 just with the cost of what starting blocks are, concrete work, things like that. So it's one of those things we might be looking at, either putting a plan together for a few years, potentially working with other swim teams, things like that, to see if we can do some partnerships in order to make something like that happen. But it is something we need to make sure is on our radar and see what we can do.
Does the city use those blocks other than for the swim team?
No, they're just for primarily the swim season. So it's one of those tough things where you're looking at really 3, maybe 4, 5, 6, meets a year, everyday practice twice a day for, 2.5 months or so. So it's a somewhat of a tough pill to swallow, but all the Grosse Pointe, St. Clair Shores, everyone in Lakefront Swim Association, you know, other than St. Clair Shores, has starting blocks. So it's just one of those ones that
If we're gonna have a team, we gotta have what the team
we need,
needs.
exactly. So we just gotta get creative, I think, and I think there's some opportunities there. Whether we work with some individuals that are interested in sponsoring or donating towards a starting block, something like that. My goal isn't to have somebody's name everywhere in the park, but there's certain, you know, items that we could definitely work together on those things. And honestly, our swim program is probably our biggest program that we have. I mean, we had a record high in number of registration for kids in the program this year. So it is important, you know, it again does have 2 practices a day, multiple meets a year. So it's something we need to take a look at seriously.
I'll parlay that into any other discussion on that. Parlays well into their question about scoreboard. That is temporary, correct?
Yes, yep, that'll be taken down, stored by Grosse Pointe Farms, and then we'll actually go back up again for next finals, next prelim and finals.
And that's shared by the points.
Yeah, all the Grosse Pointes and St. Clair Shores.
Next item.
So Paul, let me just interrupt for a second. Great to hear the Windmill Point Subcommittee's been that active. Did a subcommittee report go out from Windmill Point?
Did amongst us. Are you giving me the hook?
No, the part of the goal here, did all of this make it to Chad a couple weeks ago, so he had a chance to prepare? I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
with the new process, okay.
This
So-
was a collaborative.
Yeah, so I'd ask that all the subcommittee chairs make sure that Chad, Marty, and I get copies of whatever your reports are, questions are, so we're aware of what's coming for these. So you're not getting the hook, and these are the kind of things we want to talk about, but process-wise, the subcommittee should be meeting between the meetings, whether it's emails, phone call, in person, it's up to you to get your thoughts together. But then the city council liaison, me and Chad should be getting reports from subcommittees. So
They did, but I'm sorry you're not connected to it.
it's not a problem. So why don't you keep working through what you got?
Gutter system. Looks like that's the root cause for a couple of issues. The retaining wall and the landscaping, there's an erosion issue. It looks like aesthetically moss, mold, dirt, something on the Windmill Point Drive side of Lavin. So please.
Yeah, yep, and we had previously looked at that, I believe in the 2021-2022 fiscal year budget, we had made a request to remove the landscaping there, the retaining wall, and put together a gutter system coming off the flat roof of the Lavin's Activity Center. Right now, there aren't any type of downspouts, it's just open holes that water pours out from the roof itself, which leads to the erosion. It's somewhat hidden by the landscaping that's in there right now, but if we were to remove all of that, it would just start doing that around the foundation of the building and the flat natural ground that would be there. And we had gotten 3 quotes or so from landscaping companies to do that work, put in drainage systems that would go underneath the sidewalk and come back up out towards the other side of the fence on the park grounds towards the Windmill Point Drive. The number that we had unfortunately needed to be cut at that time, so there wasn't enough funding in order to do that. We're looking at DPW possibly doing the removal of the landscaping now, but we still have to look at some type of a gutter system to run off the building to catch and prevent that erosion. So that'll be another cost factor we need to look into.
And then it'll just be grass around there instead of the.
Yeah,
Okay.
there might be some minimal landscaping, but for the most part, it'll just be grass. Yep.
In the spirit of budgetary items, work on the fountain.
Yep, we've already been working with Grunwald Cashero. They've done work on that. They've done work on the ice rink and reflecting pond at Patterson for us. What they're going to have to do that might be a little bit more intense work then for DPW is kind of deconstruct the fountain itself. We believe it's an interior plumbing issue that's causing the problems that we've been facing. That's why we didn't run the fountain this season, other than the sprayers on the outside of the children's pool. So they're going to take that apart, get those issues corrected. Hopefully it's not too major of plumbing issues, and then have that built back up and ready to go by next summer for the pool season.
Last item.
What was the problem with the?
It's the inner plumbing. Water comes through from the levels of the fountain itself, where it comes out into the actual wading pool area of it. So it's getting throughout the base of the fountain itself and causing the sections the pieces to pop loose.
Oh, okay. The actual damage to the fountain structure.
Yeah.
The water still ends up in the
Repairs are
pool, but it is injuring the fountain.
I got
Not
you.
fixed.
Okay.
And we do have really an unused piece of the park, and that's the horseshoe pits. It's a big piece of land, and we won't have an answer today, but I think it's probably time to start socializing some ideas on modernize the usage of that area. I know we don't have a pavilion today. I think cornhole, maybe the new horseshoe, something to consider, and perhaps half-court basketball. But I think we probably have chance buying that. It's just something that's only used a couple times a summer, and it's a big piece of land. So that covers all my items. So I'll give it back to the chair.
So thank you, Paul. And these are exactly the kind of issues that we hope the subcommittees will raise. Ideally, what we want to do is get these to Chad and Stedman several weeks in advance of the meeting so that Chad can research. Now, he knew the answers to things incredibly well here, but ideally, these will all make their way into the packet. So as we see the items at some of the other places, we have the opportunity as a commission to know what's coming and what we're preparing for, and the public does as well. Take the horseshoe pits, for example. I have no idea if there's a large horseshoe playing contingent of the public or not, but getting these to Chad so he can get them into the meeting packet allows us to get the feedback from the community, and as you talk about brainstorm how to use that area of the park. So keep it up, Windmill Committee or Subcommittee, but we would like to see those in advance.
Copy that.
Buildings and facilities, I know that,
Question about horseshoes.
sorry, horseshoes.
Before we move on, how many thousands of dollars in horseshoes do we have?
Not much. We get a couple of figures. We do have a couple of diehard groups that come once or twice a year. A group of guys that have a little get together tournament. Again, we can always make some adjustments.
Accommodate them somehow.
We can make some things work there, but it really is kind of an underutilized area. And something along the lines of all three of those items that Paul had mentioned really could serve as for, I would think Tom would even probably agree, if there was an area or space at Windmill to put a pavilion or a shelter in, it would be highly popular. The shelter at Patterson's rented out every weekend. So to put something like that in at Windmill would go over really well. And I think that's a great thing about the way we're kind of restructuring this commission is it's really going to turn into kind of a team effort. There might be a few people individualized for Windmill, but with the buildings and facilities, marina, things like that, people are going to notice other things and be able to pass that along. So, kind of like the gutter system and some of those things might fall into a Roy buildings and facilities, but they can pass that along to where Roy might see something just on the grounds in general and pass that along. So now it's more sets of eyes looking at everything more than just two or three getting together and kind of, passing along to each other. So it'll work out really well once we get used to it.
Thank you.
All right, so on buildings and facilities, we have items in the packet that describe the specific items that were raised by the subcommittee and some initial recommendations from Chad. So starting with the gatehouses, and then moving through shingles, restrooms, and gazebo. Chad, let me ask you, are there any on which you have either more information you want to share or which you have questions for the commission about either scope of project or approach? Anything that you're looking for feedback on from us?
I might let Roy just touch base on a few of the items, but no, the plan for the most part is just getting some pricing quotes, how extensive of work we want to get into right now. Again, another one we know is the Patterson Park restrooms. Do we want to look into the removal of the trough type of urinal system there and actually remodel that with some urinals and make sure we fall within code for those upgrades. I know there was some siding, repainting the pillars, things like that. Those are no issues. We're getting some pricing on some repairs to the shingles in some corner areas of the Laffins Activity Center to see pricing on that. Really the park gatehouses and some touch up, outside aesthetic things that I believe staff can get to. And even if it's one of those things we don't have the employees for, I think it will be minimal cost in subcontracting the work to get us where we're at for April, May, June, starting at those times where again you'll catch something and see a nice fresh look to it.
So Roy,
Yes, sir.
you try to find you behind the clock here.
He did defer to me, but then he covered everything.
I was going to say that was a pretty thorough deferral.
It was.
Anything you want to add from a facilities perspective or additional questions, Chad, in light of the write-up you provided?
No, covered it all.
The efficiency at its finest. Okay, so the essentially TBD on a lot of these in terms of timing, scope, et cetera. Is this something that your work on facilities like this, is this something that you can do over the winter? Or is this a paint, et cetera? Are we looking at either right now or spring?
Some of it probably will get deferred. We might be able to knock some of it out this fall. A lot of it will probably be if we start to get some nice weather, late March, April, knock a lot of it out going into that summer. So what I'll probably do is try to get those numbers, get with Roy, bring that to the next meeting if we've got some good pricing, and then we'll kind of prioritize again if that subcommittee and everyone involved can kind of look, that's when we'll pick. I think what's the priority, the remodel of the gazebo at Patterson or the restrooms at Patterson, which one do we want to focus on tackling first?
Questions, comments from the commission for either Chad or the building facilities subcommittee?
I would think that the remodeling of the restrooms would be a fairly low priority, right? I mean,
Well,
is there somebody
pending
really?
usefulness, right there.
I mean, right now we have urinals that seem to work 100% of the time that I'm there. Is there some problem I don't know about with regard to those urinals?
No, they're,
Classic.
yes,
Classic,
that's the way of putting it. There's just some things we could do, and it may not, it might be something we could do in phases as well. Replace some of the siding on the outside of the building, not tackling the project all at once, but each fiscal year make some changes to the facility itself. So
And on the gazebo, Chad, your summary refers to the Pewabic tile needing repairs. Is it still repairable, or do we not know yet?
With a couple of contractors I met with before, the problem you run into is because of the weather changes and the freezing temps and warm temps. It's pretty much guaranteed to crack, come off again. So it's one of those things. I think it'd be nice to meet with the subcommittee, some more contractors, and see what a long-term solution would be.
Is there a structural concern on that gazebo? The growth seems to me to be pretty spectacular in total weight?
Nothing from what we've been able to gather yet. Brian Coulter, the city forester, does bring a crew in typically every year and cuts everything back, and then that's how quickly it grows back again. There hasn't been anything brought to my attention yet that with those trimming companies and things like that, that's causing any structural damage to the top of it yet. But I'm glad you bring that up, because I might have some contractors come out and take a look.
Definitely more
specifically
here,
at that.
right?
Yep.
And Chad, this might be an opportunity to have both the Patterson and the facility subcommittee weigh in. The gazebo is one of those that checks a couple of boxes, and the same thing, if we're talking about prioritizing restrooms or gazebo, and then the same would be true of windmill for issues that apply to them. Perhaps both subcommittees will weigh in. We don't need to duplicate, but on the other hand, if there's going to be a decision to tear out the gazebo or something, I think that would be relevant to everyone. Okay. Any other items on buildings, facilities, gazebos? All right, hearing none. The marina. Tom, anything happen with the marina?
Yeah,
Okay, one or two things.
yeah, we had a very good, busy season. I think when we first met, first time I was here last May, our primary concern with our marina was safety. And we've addressed the safety issues in the marina, in that the cart that the harbor masters drive around in the marina are both, that's now equipped with number one, a life jacket. Number two, a throw for life-saving measures so that somebody does not have to go into the water to try to rescue somebody. And we did have 2 incidents this year with people in the water, with rolled over kayaks, with an east wind. And on the lake side of the marina, it becomes like a washing machine over there. And one of our gate guards actually went in the water without putting on a life jacket to help rescue a woman, her daughter, and their dog. He went down the ladder to try to do it, and he couldn't get to him, so he went in the water, which I frown on heavily. I've talked to him, I've talked to the other guys too, that don't ever go in the water to try to rescue somebody. It's a mistake. 90% of the time you end up drowning because they get on top of you, and there's a big issue with that. So there is a Class 1 Coast Guard approved life jacket. So if you absolutely had to go in the water, you'll be safe. We've also on every single pier now has a life ring. There's multiple life rings on every pier now, with a 50-foot throw with a 28-inch bright orange life ring. They're very, very visible when you walk down the dock. So if somebody is in trouble, we've got a life ring with a 50-foot line on it that we can help get somebody out of the water without going in the water. So safety was our number one issue. We've addressed the safety issues. We've also been working with Avonmarsh all summer. Avonmarsh is the contractor, not the contractor, the engineers that have given us several different proposals and concepts as to how we can, you guys all have a copy of from the Marina Subcommittee, that this is the concept pretty much that we approved. Councilman Caulfield and I met, we're both boaters, we've both been in the marina for a long, long time. And the original concepts that Avonmarsh came up with were taking us from 270 wells to 190 wells. So I squashed those pretty quickly without really, other than talking to me and Chad and Tom Caulfield, we squashed those ideas in that what do we do with 80 boaters? And from our survey, we find out that, most of our boaters are longtime boaters, longtime well boaters. Maybe they've gotten different boats over the years and upgraded boats over the years, but they've been, for the most part, the average age of our boaters are about 15 years in the marina. We've got boaters in the marina that have been there for over 50 years. And this year, we did a very good job, I think, at selling wells. Every single well is filled. So there's a contract on every single well. which is great. And then when you look at concepts and you think, okay, we've got 270 wells, they're all full. So how much do you need to change the marina if we're already full? We've got a waiting list of 250 people. The biggest thing that we want to address is Pier 1. Pier 1, the wells are very narrow. They're 8'6". We want to increase those wells, about half of them, to 9.5 to 10 foot wide. From 8.5, we want to add at least a foot, 1.5 feet. If we're talking about reconstructing all Pier 1. Okay?
Would that not lead to fewer wells?
Yes.
Yeah, and what we're doing is trying to get it down to 260 wells opposed to 270. When we started this project, we knew that we were gonna lose wells. We didn't want to lose 80, we didn't want to lose 50. Number one, it's a very good revenue source. I think we've got a very stable, active boating community in the park. I think everybody really enjoys the marina. Pier 1 is in dire need all the way out, painting inside and out. I've gotten in touch with 3 contractors as far as painting the inside of Pier 1. I've also got 2 contractors now that will also will give us estimates this week, painting the outside walls. The outside walls on Pier 1 and along the riverfront are in bad shape aesthetically. The bones are very good. They need maintenance. They need paint. They need to be blasted, sandblasted, and painted. The big thing with doing the inside and the outside, both of those painting areas, when you blast them, you have to be able to collect everything that comes off, right? Because there's lead paint on all those walls, from years and years and years. There's several different systems that we're looking at as far as repainting them that we'll address soon financially, how much that's going to cost. Also, the asphalt along the wall, we really have to do something more than cutting the weeds down along the inside wall. We have to eliminate those weeds because those weeds, the roots and the weeds, get under the asphalt and pop them up. So we have to do something better as far as killing those weeds so they don't come back. And we've been very, very diligent about cutting them all summer. Once a week, guys are out there with weed whips and cutting those weeds all down. So aesthetically, it looks good. But in the long run, we've got to get rid of them. We have to do something to get rid of them. And I think that takes a product like, I don't even want to say it, something like Roundup. It's going to kill the weeds and keep them gone. So we have to figure out that. But that's essential. Going back to Pier 1, that's going to be reconstructed. So half the walls are going to be wider. The fences are going to need to be replaced. There's going to be new gates. Piers 2, 3, 4, and 5 are going to be raised. There will be new lighting and water in pods.
RAZED or RAISED?
RII, yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. We're not blowing them up.
It'll be like a superstructure on top.
Superstructure on top of what already exists on top of the cement. We talked a lot about the risers that are on the docks now. We have estimates from $45,000 to remove them to $18,000 to remove them. Actually, we're talking about not removing them. I think everybody in the marina can live another year with the risers as they are. Okay, we do have to replace the water PEX lines, PEX. They're white PEX lines that are there now. Were temporary, and those PEX lines were supposed to last approximately 1 to 2 years. We're at the end of the 3rd season, and right now we have a lot of algae growing in those PEX lines. So, like when you wash your boat, you've got green all over your boat from the algae coming through those PEX lines. So that's a project that we're talking about doing this fall. As soon as the marina closes, getting those PEX lines out, making it much safer as far as putting holes through the risers that go down to the actual T docks so that it's not a trip hazard. We want to eliminate any trip hazards until the construction can begin. And we've been working really, really well with Island Marsh, with the contractors that are local guys as far as our painting contractors. And we should have estimates this week on all the paint stuff that we need to do. So we're moving forward. Safety is very, very critical. Electrical is critical. Water is critical. Water and electrical will be addressed when the major stuff is done with all new pods. They have to be, the water and electricity has to be a minimum of 2 feet above the highest water level that we've had in the park. The inside interior walls in the park are an issue in that the cement is crumbling. Those have to be raised at least a couple of feet. And this is in addition to the harbor, there's 2 areas that need to be addressed: the interior wall and the exterior entrance. The exterior entrance was underwater for 2 years. And all there was lights to guide you in. The superstructure's in good shape. All of the batting in between is in bad shape. The entrance, that all has to be redone. That has to be redone. The lighting on the docks need to be redone. But we're working on it. We've been working on it all summer. I've been in contact with Island Marsh, 1 or 2 days a week. We had a really good phone conversation meeting with Mike Morphy and a couple of his engineers with myself, Chad Craig, and Tom Caulfield on the call. It was about a 2-hour Zoom call that went very, very well. So we got everybody on the same page that we're not trying to recreate that harbor. We're not interested in blowing up the harbor and starting over. It's just very, very, very costly. The bones in the harbor are really good. And we're told that, we've got the harbor itself is in really, really good shape. Structurally, it just needs a lot of maintenance. It needs updating. It needs modernized. Docks all need to be raised. They will be. We're not going to floating docks at this time. At this time, from our survey, we found that about 68% of our 150 customers that answered the survey weren't at this time interested in personal watercraft in the marina. We do have personal watercraft in the marina as long as it can fit in a well with your boat. You can bring in your jet ski and your personal watercraft. But at this time, we don't have anything in this plan in concept 3 that everybody's got a copy of with any floating docks or personal watercraft areas at this point.
So Tom, I'm sorry, please go ahead and finish all that.
I was going to ask if there was any questions.
So a couple of things. Number one, I appreciate the survey results being shared, and please forgive me and the public, we are not in an optimal seating situation here. So as I turn my back to you to talk to Tom, forgive me. I know that at the May meeting, the commission had requested seeing the survey before it went out. So I was disappointed to hear it went out without us seeing that. The PWC thing did raise a question to me, though. When we're surveying boat owners, it doesn't surprise me that boat owners are not huge PWC fans or not looking for additional PWC storage or capacity in the marina. Did we do anything to reach out to non-current boat owners and determine if there's additional demand that we could fill with PWCs?
We did not.
Okay.
We didn't go as deep as going to the waiting list either. The only people that we surveyed and we talked about it extensively was boat owners that are in the harbor now, what they want to see. If there's anything different that they want to see. Pretty generic questions. I apologize for not getting it out to this group before it was sent out. We probably redid that survey a half a dozen times before Chad and I agreed with Island Marsh to get the survey out. We talked to Nick Seisland and he was involved with the survey before it was sent out. So the city manager was involved.
And that's probably something we can still involve with the wait list. Your numbers or responses may not be as accurate as you want, just because there's probably a good chunk of those individuals on the wait list that may not have a boat yet, ever boated. They're getting on there because they know that's the thing to do when you move to Crestwood Park, to make sure you get on the marina wait list. So we can still get that. We'll still be able to take those numbers and look at what the responses are to kind of help gauge, our focus on the project for sure.
Yeah, and I think for the marina redo, the boat slip owners or boat slip renters are the right audience, and you got a good response rate or good number of responses from Evan Marsh. So let's start with the Pier 1 well width. Does widening those just reflect a change in boat taste since the original marina was constructed?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
The newer boats are all wider. When, 50 years ago, boats were 6-7 foot wide. Today, they're 8, 9, 10, 12 feet wide. There's more and more people that are getting into pontoon boats. We have 3, 4 in the marina now, pontoon boats. So those take up a little bit more room than an 8-foot wide fishing boat. But we still have those fishing boat customers. We still have those customers on dock 1 that fill every single dock. Are there wells on Pier 1 that I have a boat in that is really tight? Absolutely. There's a half a dozen at least on Pier 1 that are really tight. We make it work. We moved a lot of boats around this year to accommodate the size of their boat to the size of the well that they were in. So that we try very, very hard. I try putting all the puzzle pieces together to make everything work. And I haven't had any complaints about where people are.
Oh, good. That would not have been my guess as you start to move people out of their longtime wells.
I did it very, very softly.
Excellent. Thank you. That's right. The Tom's charm saved us the complaints. So is the Marina Subcommittee ready to recommend option 3? Is option 3?
Yes.
Okay. So in terms of this commission, are you asking us to consider option 3 and whether to recommend it up to the council? What's the thought there in Chad?
Just to be clear on that, as president of the subcommittee, we recommend it in modified form because concept 3 does not include, from Evan Marsh, does not include widening any wells on Pier 1.
No,
What we would like is,
all of them on Pier 1.
Or, I'm sorry, it included widening all of them.
but it cut the final number down to 247. So what we're asking for is your
Modified.
blessing. And once we receive a modified drawing, getting us back to the 260, falling within the width range that we're looking for to move forward with getting pricing, getting material options, and sending it forward to city council to begin more serious steps towards the project.
All right,
With
so
an
you're,
objective of trying to lose no more than about 10 wells overall in the marina.
so your thought would be that for the November meeting, we should have an Avonmarsh prepared proposal ready for public comment, et cetera, at this group. And do you think it'll be ready for November?
Yes.
Is that might be something that we're able to pass along once we receive that sooner to get it possibly on an earlier council meeting?
Yeah, and this is obviously with the proposals that you're considering compared to some of the other options that were out there. I think some of the other ones may have engendered more public comment, but this is a big item, and I know that there will be public interest in it. So that the sooner we can get it out to the public and give people lead time on that meeting, the better. Questions from the commission for the Marina Subcommittee, with the understanding that there's more to come, but they're making progress making a lot of progress in terms of heading towards a plan.
I'd like to just clarify something that Tom reported on, because it was my understanding at our last subcommittee meeting that the group agreed to remove only those risers that represent a safety hazard. but we would still remove those safety hazard areas. And I believe you said we're not removing any. So which is the,
We've addressed the safety issues. Where the day after that meeting, I spent most of the day out on the docks. And
you told me I didn't have to join you, I remember.
I did. I was done by, 11 o'clock. I figured, you need your food, you need sleep.
Right.
The
So
only-
you resolve that by not having to remove any?
The only one, there's about a 60-foot piece on Pier 3, it's right in the middle, that has a walkway on either side that I've actually stumbled
Tripped on,
on twice over the last few years. But that one piece I have, some gentlemen that have boats in our harbor that want that piece. I said, great. Get your screwdrivers, get your chainsaw, whatever you need, your sawzall, and
Haul it away.
you can have them.
We'll check with the legal team before.
We want to
Takes
check
place,
with
but
legal, make
sure
sure that I can get somebody come and get them, but it's not a big deal. But that's the only safety part that I decided that was really something that we should address. Other than that, the trip hazards with the PEC lines, when the PEC lines come out, the new ones go in.
Yeah, that's a separate issue.
Yeah, that's a separate issue. That's whole saws going
Right,
through.
right. Okay, I thought there were safety issues on some of the finger piers as well, but if there aren't, that's great.
There's a couple of them with boards that are sagged that are, an inch lower. But they're boards that are, 4 inches wide.
Yeah.
That if we need to replace a couple of those, we can replace them, but it's not a big deal.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Anything else, please? You know why?
I think we're all looking forward to seeing the next step from Avonmarsh.
With your guys' permission, I can send you a brief overview of what we talked about at the Marina Subcommittee. I did send it out to the Marina Subcommittee the day after our meeting, highlighting what we talked about at that meeting. And if you wish, I can email you all tomorrow if you'd like to see that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think, Tom, it's important to recognize that we all get asked about the marina a lot. So while we may not all be owners, we are still sort of stakeholders
Certainly.
in the project. And in fact, so is the whole town.
Right.
So more communication on it, I think, is
I've been trying to
something you should always be seeking.
I've been trying to communicate with the subcommittee, and Chad and I talk every day. I am a part-time employee.
No,
Chad and I talk every day.
Supporting your idea, not trying to criticize your work.
I don't take it as criticism at all. Thank you. I'm very excited to move forward.
Me too.
All right, well, speaking of moving forward into 2024, time for deposits. What do you got, Tom?
Deposits letters, I talked to Megan today. The deposit letters will probably go out next week. We are looking at probably a 5% increase, and Larry, you were correct. Last year was 5%, not 3%.
I looked it up to double check.
Yeah,
The last
so did I.
3 years.
When we come, I did check with all of the other cities as far as what they were raising their rates, as far as the city, the farms, the shores, and the woods. And they're all between 3 and 5. And we will be in line at 5%. We are raising rates to get more in line with what everybody else charges. We do have bigger wells than anybody else, other than the shores have some large wells. But the farms doesn't have as many large wells. The city doesn't either. And the woods, their biggest wells are 26 feet. 26-foot boat, is the biggest boat you put in the woods. So we have a diamond with our 270 wells here. And any questions any of you guys get from residents as far as the marina, please reach out to me. I'm at your service.
All right, anything else for Tom? Marty?
Approximately how many people return every year out of our 270? What's the ratio there? What percentage would you say return every year? You said some of our residents have been there 50 years.
Yeah,
So
I say we probably have a 90% retention rate. Last year, there was probably out of 270, I think we didn't have 27 new boaters this year. That'd be 10%. We had less than that. I think the number of first-year boaters that are in the harbor this year is probably somewhere under 15. We do have some new boaters that are learning. They got better as the year went along.
And that's typically what I've recommended in those smaller wells on one is, why don't you try it out for a season and see if you love boating, and the extra costs that come along with it is something you like. So that's been part of the turnover of those smaller wells on one, and some inexperienced boaters who come in and say, yeah, we tried it for a year, boating's not for us. It's the friend who has the boat, that will be joining. But then you also get the other ones who love it, and then they're chomping at the bit. When can I move into a 13 by 35 or a 12 by 28? Because once they fall in love with it, then they want to get on the lateral change list and move to a bigger well. And typically that's where the challenge you face is the 13 by 35 turnover. There isn't a lot of it, so.
We remind the newcomers of the definition of a boat, a hole in the water in which you pour money.
And the acronym is bust out another cloud.
There you go.
If I can add one thing, I do think it's really important on this committee that we do have some facts. Like, people ask me about the marina, and a lot of people don't realize, as you mentioned, it's a huge revenue source, but it is an enterprise fund. Because I don't like it when people have the misconception that on some level other, tax dollars are being used to support some sort of, hobby that a small group of people have. And it's not that way at all.
No.
And if anything, there's controversy in the past. I'm not going to go there, but it is supposed to be an enterprise fund where it self-funds, and that's the way it is in the charter.
And this year, I think we brought in somewhere around 330,000. So it was a good year.
And I think that's a big thing that non-boating community needs to take into consideration, is that we're on the water. All of the Grosse Pointes are on the water. To potentially be the only Grosse Pointe who doesn't have a marina or something like that would be a big impact. And I feel like a negativity to the park system, to the city, to not be able to have a feature like that. So although you may not be into it and you may not love the boating, it would be huge if that's not something we could offer to our residents and their guests and things like that. That's part of summer. That's part of the life down at the park. So just seeing it and taking it all in. So
Subcommittee had quite a long discussion about the value of the marina to the overall community, including non-boaters, and what a gem it is and how it attracts property value. It increases property values for non-boaters as well. So we're hoping that the community realizes the value of this gem that is a great asset to our community. We also talked a lot about funding that we're going to have to face going forward, because even though we've cut back on some of what Avon March has recommended, we took their least expensive concept, we're still facing a huge challenge when it comes to funding this renovation of the marina. So we've got some ideas that we're playing with right now.
all right.
So Chad and Tom, will the Evan Marsh plan, will you include numbers with that when it comes?
Yeah, once we get more formal numbers and things like that from them, that's still early stages. Once we get those, that's stuff that'll come along with it. So we don't have that really figured out yet. So once we get more drawings and things and actually know what type of materials, things like that, what the widths of the wells will be, that's what
Specifications.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
That will not be ready in November.
Okay.
I don't think so. Also, on Pier 1, we will be replacing all the top rails. Where right now it gets damaged from ice come spring when the ice breaks up, because the way they've got the boards right now, they overlap outside, so the ice pushes them up and breaks them. So Chad's looked at some materials that I've looked at, as well as recycled plastic that can be molded, that won't grow algae, not slippery.
Flush.
And it'll be flush to the outside, so ice can't get underneath it when the ice breaks up. So that'll be replaced at the same time when painting is done.
Some possible aluminum options as well.
You're looking at the metal too,
Also
aluminum,
looking at
extruded aluminum, yeah.
extruded aluminum, that Councilman Caulfield has a contact with an aluminum extruding company.
Give us a good
We
deal.
might go that route, see which one's more advantageous and more cost effective. Anything else? Any other questions? Any questions from y'all? As far
Well,
as
I had a question. Are you willing to share some of those ideas, Larry, or are you not ready to do that
I
yet?
think it might
Because-
be premature at
Is it-
this point because there's definitely not consensus yet on the
Sure.
subcommittee with regard to how we're gonna go forward. You agree with that, Chad
I would agree with that.
and Tom?
I agree.
Yeah. So, soon.
Got it.
We're working on it literally every day.
Sure.
All right, Patterson Park. We have obviously the playground. Why don't we actually bump that to the end of Patterson and do the other two items? Adopt a garden and dog park maintenance.
Yeah, well, James, I don't know if you want to kind of take the lead a little bit on some of it or just kind of some of the things you were noticing and seeing with the subcommittee, and then I'll dig a little deeper into it.
Yeah, we could do that. So from the Adopt a Garden standpoint, I saw that there were some community events. I know we've had some conversations in the past about putting together an Adopt a Garden just to kind of help with the gardening staff that you have very limited supply of. I was just wondering if you had any updates or do we have a plan going forward? I know it's the end of the year.
Yeah.
So something that maybe we start now so people can, maybe have some ideas, or I just wanted to see what your take on that.
Yeah.
Is a possibility.
I've talked with Lisa. If not all of you know, Kelly Momcat Kanushki has been a big part helping with the Monarch program. Brian Coulter, and although we don't have anything put in place quite yet for the Adopt a Garden program, I think the Beautification Commission and some of our residents have kind of adopted the inside area of the boardwalk and kind of adopted that whole area for the time being to get it where we want it to be right now. They have another event coming up, I believe, this Saturday, where they're going to be planting some more native plants out there. They've really done a nice job cleaning up the area, getting where they want it to be. So I'll hopefully have some more stuff going into November, maybe a little sooner, maybe a little bit later on kind of what the plan is throughout both of the parks, and maybe extending what that adopter program will be in the areas that we can offer to residents, whether they maintain it themselves, a business sponsors it, or they pay to sponsor it and someone else takes care of it for them. There's some possibilities and options we can look at. But they've been doing a great job so far, and again, with limited staffing, it's been a huge help and kind of sigh of relief in an area that needs some attention and people use every day. So very thankful to have the Beautification Commission and residents kind of take some initiative and partner with us, and really it's caring about, you know, the beauty and aesthetics and the looks of our parks. So
Okay. And then,
Thank you to those volunteers, Chad.
and the dog park maintenance, we've met in the spring. We have drainage issues like we do in that whole park.
Yeah.
And I know that we were working with DPW to see if we could get some support to clean out some existing drains. I don't believe that work.
the drains are actually okay. They did look those over. We'll be winterizing the drinking fountain soon. Most likely the drain tile work is probably going to happen in the spring. A lot of stuff's going to go to the spring. As you know, with some of the water mains, things like that, there's some things that are bigger issues than that right now. But same thing, we're looking at that. We've been putting the mulch in the entry area. Corinne and her crew looking at the landscaping around the outside perimeter of the dog park. And we'll continue to put a focus and attention on that, and hopefully we can knock some more stuff out in the spring.
Chad, the entrance area mulch continues to be acceptable to the dog users?
I haven't had any negative feedback yet. It's not to say that someone hasn't been not pleased with it, but nothing's come my way. I haven't had anything from the gate staff, and typically a lot of the dog park users will stop and chat with the gate guards there. And I haven't heard any negative feedback on it yet.
Great. All right. The Patterson Park Playground. And Chad, thank you for in the packet here, including the report. Great to see the actual report with the details. And this is for the group's purposes. We had a summary available to us last time, but one of the things I asked Chad to do was share the underlying report. Part of the reason you have a much larger packet than you've ever had before is trying to make sure that everyone has the information available to them. And the report, Chad, I found really interesting for a lot of reasons. Obviously, we have a unique playground. Is Leathers and Associates who built it or who designed it the first time, or who is Leathers?
Yes.
Okay. Got it. And so I have a number of questions, but so that I don't monopolize Chad's time here. The Patterson Playscape is something, the last time we spoke, we had the summary of the report. And the summary of the report was it had a 20-year design lifespan. We're at 32 years now. And there were a number of elements. We talked about minor replacement or major replacement, but the foundation had a plan. And then as I let off the meeting with, between the meetings, the foundation plan outpaced the commission, and the foundation plan is now in place at Windmill. So we're back to square one on Patterson. That gives us the opportunity to get this commission a chance to review the report, weigh in on the report and possibilities, and then to engage with the community. And one of the directives that came out of the city council meeting when the plan was shifted from Patterson to Windmill Point was to help give the community input a chance to be heard. And that's part of what this commission will do. I know Chad has recommended in here that we form a subcommittee to help address this, and we have to gauge the interest of the commission here, but that certainly makes sense to me. We also had a number of volunteers from the community through the city council meeting, and I know that Chad is gathering those names, and we're going to invite some of those folks to contribute their time and talents to this as well. So before we dive into the playground itself, any questions, thoughts about kind of how we got here or what the broad plan is for addressing the playscape?
I'd just like to mention again, I think I brought it up at our last meeting, as one of the members of the community that helped build the darn thing, which I thought was a great community effort that everyone really enjoyed and took great pride in what the results were, that we should not forget that we could possibly use volunteers from the community again to rebuild it and renovate the playscape. I think that worked out great. It was like going to a party every time I went down there to help, work on a slide or whatever it was, jungle gym. And it helped bring the community together, and the result was outstanding. So let's keep that in mind as we move forward.
All right, thank you, Larry. All right, Marty?
Yeah, I agree with Larry. I helped work on that as well. I was one of the guys that did the routering, so I was enjoyed it. I think this is a great idea to form a committee to analyze and see what we can save and what we might be obsolete. I know there are safety issues, and we got to go through that and talk about that and see how we can rectify it. To save what we can, and if something's got to go, it's got to go. But I think this is a great chance for all of us to work together again. and engage other residents. It's really gonna be great.
So Chad, one of
Looking
the,
forward to it.
one of the things in light of that, I know we had talked last time that there were insurance reasons and other concerns why the community build model might not work. The Leathers report seems to indicate they are promoting the community build option. Understanding lots of people promote things for lots of reasons. Is the community build option something that is even on the table based on what you've seen? Or even as we go back to the drawing board, is that something we'll have to kind of cross off the list?
No, it's a possibility after talking with the city attorney. What they're able to put together is that it would have to be serious negligence on our end to be held responsible for anything. So we've had to have ignored something or completely not put the screws in or something like that on a piece of new structure or something like that to be held responsible. So we wouldn't be able to form a volunteer team to do work on the playground.
And I think that's a tremendous change since May, and I'm happy to hear it because that is one of the most common pieces of feedback we've received to date is the feeling of ownership from so many members of the community that helped build it. So I think that from my perspective at least is something that very much changes our approach to this because there's a big difference between pick something and let a contractor build it and we're all hands off versus the potential for a community project. There's also all the other issues that we have now. The foundation was good enough to donate a playscape. We've already used that at our other parks. So we now have to evaluate what can be done here. There was also, for anyone who wasn't able to attend or view the council meeting, there were feedback from folks who were never being at Defer as the architect sat with the children, bless you, of Defer, giving ideas and how some of these design elements were reached 31, 32 years ago. And so the possibility of replacing or repairing versus tearing down and doing new is something we heard from a lot of commentators. So there's an awful lot to be done here, and there's an awful lot to consider. But I think that Chad's proposal, which is on page 67 of the packet, is to create an additional subcommittee to specifically address the playground at Patterson. And this, like the Marina subcommittee that has members from outside this commission due to the nature and scope of it, I think this is an opportunity to include some folks from outside of the commission, especially during the early brainstorming sessions. And then this also gives the opportunity for that committee to come back with a variety of ideas for us to discuss. So let me open it to this group. Would anyone have a thought, comment, question, concern about the proposal from Chad to create a Patterson Park playground subcommittee that would include James as the subcommittee chair for Patterson Park and at least one or two other members of this commission, and then we'll have to talk about the composition of the rest of it with Chad and James. But let me open it to the group.
I certainly support the idea of going outside the commission to getting some of the community members who are interested in this thing and who may have participated and myself in building the original one to participate in the design and refurbishment of the current one. I think that's a great idea, and it just starts the ball rolling to get the community involved. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and I would like to see some connections to the original playground, but I also want to make sure that we have some young families and make sure we're accommodating the current users and
absolutely
future users.
I'm not
as we look
suggesting
at it.
they have to be people who worked on it originally, because they're getting old. But the other thing with regard to any concerns about it being a community development, I mean, it has to be all inspected, before it's put into use, I would think, by a building inspector from the city. So that should offset any real.
Well, let me put a pin in that one, Larry, because I think the city attorney should really be the one determining that. If the city attorney says it's an option, we can explore it, but rather than us spend time as a commission talking about legal issues. we'd let them-
Yeah, well, I just, don't forget that it should be inspected like any
We
other.
would probably bring in a certified playground safety inspector, actually.
Yeah.
So they would be able to look this over. Again, you're not gonna meet what those are. That's why we didn't have those inspections, because the amount of money you would have spent and the number of pages they would have sent back to you wouldn't meet that criteria.
Yeah, just expectation setting. We still have a 31-year-old playscape designed for safety standards and accessibility as it was in the 1990s. Those things are very different. All the challenges that Chad shared with us in May remain challenges. They're things that the subcommittee will have to address. But again, before we put the cart in front of the horse here, we know safety is going to be an issue. We know accessibility is going to be an issue.
Sure.
We know cost will be an issue. We know community ties to the existing playscape will be an issue. Those are all wonderful things for the subcommittee to be able to kick around. Tom,
Yeah, with putting together a subcommittee, I understand that there was a petition signed by some 900 people about keeping the playscape at Patterson, and that's why it was moved to Windmill. So whoever was involved or responsible for putting that petition together, I think those people should be notified immediately to, putting this group together, ask them if they want to be on the subcommittee.
and they have just been notified.
I was just saying, I think Tom just gave me a Thursday morning assignment, so.
So please reach out to us if you're interested in being on the subcommittee for Patterson Park.
We will have to limit from the 900 down to.
Oh, yeah, well,
Maybe 9 or 5.
And there will be, even if you're not on the subcommittee, there will be, whatever the subcommittee comes up with, I'm sure we'll be coming back to this body more than once.
Absolutely.
Just as the Marina Subcommittee has had, general options.
Sure.
And so the public comment portion of these meetings is where the public is to interact with the commission, share those ideas, comments, concerns, and that's part of why we want to make sure that the commission is involved with this project and can publish it, make the public aware of what is going on so that we can get that feedback and decide what to recommend up to council. But again, some of you, I know we've had this conversation before, but we are an advisory body. We make recommendations to council. Council decides. But part of the reason this group exists is to give the public the chance to interact and us gather all that feedback and present it up to council. So even if you're not on the subcommittee, come in, comment, we're more than happy to hear it. That's exactly what we're doing. Marty, you guys your hand up.
So your recommendation is that James is chair and then two others from this commission be on the committee along with our residents?
Well, that James be on it, not necessarily that he chair the subcommittee. If someone had a particular passion for this, we can talk about who chairs that subcommittee. But since James is the chair of the Patterson subcommittee, he's a natural person to have on the committee.
Okay, do we have anybody else along with James on the commission, on the Patterson?
Mike Bannon and I are both on the Patterson Park subcommittee as well.
I think we can have that discussion amongst you. You can send me an email. I don't want to limit the number of commission members that want to be a part of it. That's for sure.
What I would say is if you're interested, please email Chad. And same for the public, email Chad. And then Chad and I will work on what numbers are. We'll work with James and we'll get that rolling. But please don't feel like you have to raise your hand right now. Shoot Chad an email
and I don't want to get too far out ahead of it, but there are some things I want to inform everyone on that I've been able to find out recently, which Just going back to the community build theory, out of the 4 companies that gave proposals, 3 of them do not use community build. So it's not that we didn't want anything like that. It's more, I think, liability, legal things on their end, making sure that they have themselves covered. There's some minimal things they would allow, but most of them have steered away from having the community build. So 3 out of the 4 weren't going to go that route. The other thing would be, after talking with Kelly Firm a few times, once you start to do renovations or changes to a structure, just like you would in a restaurant or a bathroom or something like that, you pretty much have to bring it up to code at that point. So if we look or consider making a section of that ADA accessible or something like that, and we go from pea gravel to poured in place rubber, you then have to make all of that poured in place rubber. You can't make a section of it that. So we might be looking at bigger options of A, B, and C to trimming those down a bit to a smaller A, B, and C, and replacing a slide with a new slide, replacing an older swing with a newer model swing. But you may not be taking this part apart and building something that's wider or more stationary. Because once you start making those types of changes, then you'll have to go up to what the code is for all of that. So it's just to take into consideration that it might be more of a preservation type of project and changing out some of the amenities on there with just a newer updated, maybe replacing the 4-foot steel slide when the sun hits it just right. You don't want to go down it anyways with a 4-foot plastic type of slide or a double slide next to each other. Those are the items we'll be looking at, which again, having an extensive team together on it, we can come up with what we want to do, adding more pea gravel, staining it, wood filler, things like that, and replacing those. But I'm going to get some more answers on it, but it looks like if we start to touch anything like that and bring it up closer to code and sections, then we're going to be forced to make the whole thing accessible.
Anyone else on the playscape? All right. Chad, any unfinished business that you have?
I don't have anything at this time. If there's anything that anybody can think of, I don't have anything.
All right. I'll call it unfinished business. We mentioned the subcommittees at the beginning. A couple of things for all the subcommittees. Please do make sure you're putting your heads together. It doesn't have to be in depth, doesn't have to be a burden, but you should be meeting between commission meetings. And then again, please make sure that Marty is a council liaison and I are copied on your emails to Chad. Number 2, as we've talked about the difficulty of meeting in this format with Stacy and Roy behind us and Tom behind us. This meeting actually had been scheduled to be at the Tompkins Center in light of the playground issues and the public involvement with that. As Tom mentioned, the 900 people on the petition, we wanted to make sure that we were live streaming this meeting, so we were here. I do want to continue our efforts to get to some format where we can have a conversation as the entire commission. We have 2 members not here, and we still are exceeding the seating capacity, so that is still on our radar. And similarly, tonight's meeting location not only changed, but the meeting date changed. Again, the meeting was right on the heels of the city council meeting, and because the playscape was going to be such a big portion of what we were covering here, we wanted to give people additional time to get their thoughts together, get reactions in, et cetera. So I know that meant that some people could be here who were not planning on being here. I also know there were some people who were planning to be here who could not be, like Bannon and Sarah Coates. So there's reasons behind why we changed where this meeting was and when it is. But all of those were intended to allow greater participation tonight. One thing that Chad and I have been discussing is whether we should change meetings from 4 times a year to 6 times a year, so we avoid this 4-month gap here. The intention would not be to necessarily increase the overall number of meeting hours, but rather meet more frequently and hopefully cover in smaller bites. Let me open it up to the group. Any thoughts on meeting every other month as opposed to meeting quarterly?
I'd like to move that we meet every other month.
I'll second
It's a
that.
great idea, and I've often thought that having the big gap through the summer didn't make a lot of sense for a recreation commission when that's when so much of the recreation happens. So I'd like to make that motion.
Yeah,
so
we used to meet monthly
We have a motion in
in
a
the
second.
Terry days.
So with the monthly meetings, do you think, Stacy, that every other month is a good start?
I do,
Okay.
yeah, that's a good compromise.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, it goes back before my time on the
Yeah.
commission. I can't even tell you how we got to the quarterlies.
Yeah, I would say I will, just in my defense. The 4 meetings a year was already in place when I.
Oh, it was, yeah.
And actually, I believe during my time, we decided to move it from the August to the September meeting because of how busy everyone was in the participation in August. So
Yeah,
that's
I
why
don't
you
know
got a little
why.
bit.
It was
longer.
years ago that they
Yeah.
moved it to quarterly from monthly. I never thought it was often enough. I don't know about you guys, but.
So any other discussion on adjusting our schedule and Chad, and I will have to work on what the schedule is going forward, but all in favor of meeting every other month instead of quarterly?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so we'll work on that schedule going forward. And then as part of the schedule, we will do an updated schedule too on when the subcommittee chairs are asked to get their materials into Chad and Stedman. This is a big piece of the efficiency of this group is giving Chad and Stedman a chance to address some of these requests. And so I know we are all volunteers, we are all busy. To the extent that we can give Chad that lead time to know what is coming, give him the chance to look into it, the more we can have a conversation amongst this group about his recommendation, as opposed to a identification of a problem where then he has to go back and look into it before we can act. So we did put out a schedule at one point of when those should be in. We'll do that again in advance of these meetings. And as part of this too, if you are a subcommittee member or even a subcommittee chair, please also be respectful of Chad and Stedman. If you have something minor, just wait and put it in your report before the next meeting. Chad is always available and happy to talk to anyone. On the other hand, we can easily overwhelm him with all of us sending our thoughts, comments, questions as they're coming up. So if you're on a subcommittee, route it to your subcommittee chair. If there's something urgent, he and Stedman are always happy to take a phone call, but I want to make sure that we aren't with all of our newfound energy as we have our subcommittees look at things, just adding to Chad's work.
I don't believe it will change up a week of the month, but I will look into that potentially for 2024 of what other meetings might be on the second or third of the month. So I don't want to say it'll change, but it's possible it might be a different week. The last couple of years, we've changed a few times.
Any other new business? Hearing none. Any public comment on non-agenda items? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Heather Olku. I live on Lake Point. I know everyone's super excited about the new pickleball leagues coming up. I didn't see any senior pickleball leagues. Is it possible that with the gym being redone, is it something we can offer during the week, during the day? Or maybe it is the fastest growing sport in America. I know we have a lot of people who like to play. Is that something we could facilitate to have maybe senior drop in? I know that you had those ones on Wednesday nights and I doesn't love them when we get out there, but that would be great to see. And then I just didn't see, and again, I don't know, I might have missed it. If we have some programming for just senior fitness and activity coming into the winter months, if that's possible.
Thank you very much.
Oh, nice.
Good to see you again. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Bill Pelton.
with Owens Able Table. You can see the website right here. And I wanted to give you my 170-second update. When I was before you in May, I explained that my son had just graduated from a 4-year life skills program at Hope College. And his senior project was to research and start a food truck. But then he also put his own spin on it, which was he wants to start a food truck, and it's going to train special needs young adults who are too old for any programs at North, South, or at Full Circle. And back in May, that's what we had planned to do. That's still our plan. In May, our plan was this far from getting done. Now, as I stand here today, it's this far from getting done. It's a very fluid plan. And it just, you can't rush it because the plan has to be thoughtful. It has to be considerate and it has to be deliberate. And that's because everybody that we're hiring, all young adults with special needs, they have different skills and read at different levels. And that's why we need to streamline the content and the training. I will say that I will tell you what we have accomplished. The first thing is I have Serve Safe training. So that's the training that the person in charge at Pendy's has, person in charge at Bryan. It's about food safety. We have a website that was designed by my son Owen. We have these T-shirts that we have Instagram. He has an Instagram page. We have a Facebook page. We have secured a commissary. That's where we do all the cooking. First English Lutheran Church on Vernier. We have worked with Full Circle to create an application, streamlined, very simple, doesn't ask all the questions on a regular application. Hiring and training has begun. Like I said, that's got to be streamlined and simplified because the training that I had, there was, you have a question with 4 answers, you pick the most correct. All 4 are correct, you got to pick the most correct. So that's why it's taking a little bit longer. Our fire suppression system is installed, and also the trailer is wrapped with our name on it. So the concept is still the same, helping these young adults to gain some new skills, to hopefully get them into a restaurant in town here somewhere. And I can 100% guarantee you that we'll be ready to go next spring. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Seeing none, would anyone like to move to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor of adjournment? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
I do a little bit different.